They tell you Rome is eternal, but they never explain what that really means. Because nothing becomes eternal without something else being worn down first. Not stone, not gold, people. People like you. In the Sabura district, the city feels different. The streets are too narrow for the sky to matter. The buildings lean, not enough to fall, just enough to make you think about it. The air does not move. It stays. It watches. Smoke, rot, sweat. It settles into your skin until you stop noticing where it ends and you begin. It is 110 AD. Trajan rules a world that stretches farther than you will ever travel. But that world does not reach you. It sits above you, heavy, distant, uninterested. Today is not important. It is just another turn of the wheel. You wake before the light, not by choice. Something inside you refuses to sleep too long. For a moment, there is quiet. Then the city returns. A cough, thick and wet, somewhere beyond the wall. Wood shifting under weight it was never meant to carry. A splash outside, followed by anger. Someone missed again. You do not react. You learned early, nothing matters, unless it touches you directly. Your body moves first. Feet on stone, cold, flat, indifferent. You do not stretch, you do not hesitate. You check. Your hands close. Your legs hold. Your breath does not catch. That is enough. The room feels smaller this morning. It always does. Not because it changes, because you see more of it each day. Cracks in the wall, damp gathering in corners, a ceiling that sits lower than it should. You sleep beside others, not out of comfort, out of necessity. A brother, a wife, a man who needed space for the night. It makes no difference. Closeness here is not connection. It is shared survival. The blanket smells like smoke. Everything does. You stopped asking why. Outside, the city is already moving. Footsteps, low voices, trade beginning before the sun. Rome does not wait for light. You take the cup, step into the corridor. The building responds with a quiet groan. Not loud, just enough to remind you it could. The stairs are uneven. You do not look down anymore. Looking makes you careful. Careful makes you slow. Slow gets noticed. Outside, the alley is alive. People pass close enough to touch. No one does. Everyone understands the distance. At the fountain, the line is already there. It is always there. Water, bread, work. Everything becomes a line. And every line says the same thing. Wait, take your turn. Do not resist. You stand. No one speaks unless required. Words are not free. You drink when it is time. Cold, slightly metallic, clean enough. You wash your face in the open. No privacy. No expectation of it. You stopped carrying that need. Back upstairs, the room has already changed. Someone is gone. Someone else exists in their place. No one explains. No one asks. You eat what remains from yesterday. Bread, hard enough to remind you it lasts longer than softness. You chew slowly, not for taste. To delay the moment hunger returns. You sit for a moment, not resting, listening. There is no clock, only a shift, a subtle change in sound outside. Movement becoming urgency, the city deciding. You feel it, and that is enough. You stand, because standing is required, because stopping is not something people recover from here. And just like that, nothing begins. It simply continues, not with a clear decision, not with purpose, but with motion. Because standing still for too long begins to feel like a mistake you cannot afford to make. You step back into the street, and this time you notice more. Not because the city has changed, but because your mind has fully caught up to it. Rome is louder now, though not in any single direction. It is a layered noise, footsteps against stone, animals shifting under weight, voices overlapping without ever truly connecting, as if everyone is speaking near each other, but never to each other. The alley opens slightly, enough to let movement breathe, but not enough to make it comfortable. A boy rushes past you carrying a bucket too large for his arms, the water inside sloshing dangerously with each step, and you already know he will spill some of it before he reaches wherever he is going. Not because he is careless, but because everything here is slightly harder than it needs to be. A woman argues with a vendor over fish that should have been sold yesterday, her voice sharp but tired, like she has done this before and expects nothing to change. And the vendor responds in the same tone. Not angry, not apologetic, just continuing a ritual both of them understand too well. You keep walking, not toward anything specific, just forward, because forward is the only direction that feels acceptable in a place like this. Under your feet, the stone is uneven and damp, carrying the memory of everything that passed through it during the night. You do not look too closely. Experience has already taught you that detail rarely improves understanding here. Above you, cloth hangs between buildings, moving slightly in the weak air, not clean, not dirty enough to discard, just existing in that middle state where most things in Rome seem to settle. The light is beginning to reach the higher walls, but down where you are, it arrives late and diluted, filtered through smoke and narrow space until it feels less like sunlight and more like a suggestion of it. You breathe in and immediately regret noticing it. There is always a smell, not one, but many, layered in a way that makes them impossible to separate. Fish sauce, waste, sweat, bread, something burning somewhere that no one seems concerned about yet. It fills your chest, sits there, and reminds you that this city is not just something you walk through, it is something that enters you, whether you want it or not. A mule stands tied near a doorway, unmoving, its expression dull in a way that feels familiar. You pass it without thinking, but a small part of you recognizes the similarity, the quiet endurance, the lack of expectation. Further ahead, a man sleeps against a wall. Or maybe he is not sleeping. You do not stop to check. You have already learned that curiosity here comes with risks that rarely justify themselves. A priest moves past you, clean robes, steady pace, eyes fixed ahead as if the ground you walk on does not exist for him in the same way. For a moment, you wonder what it must feel like to believe that firmly in something, to move through this chaos with the certainty that it all leads somewhere meaningful. The thought does not last. It cannot afford to. You hear laughter, real laughter. It cuts through everything else, sharp and unexpected, and for a second, it disrupts the pattern of the street, like something out of place, but not unwelcome. You look for it, instinctively, but by the time you do, it has already dissolved back into the noise. Still, it leaves something behind. Not hope. Just a reminder. You keep moving. Because movement is the closest thing you have to control. Somewhere ahead, the street widens again, opening toward the parts of the city where decisions might be made, where work might be found, where someone might look at you and see use instead of absence. Or maybe not. The uncertainty does not slow you down. It never does. Because in Rome, for someone like you, the worst outcome is not failure. It is stopping. And so you don't. You walk not toward opportunity, not toward change, but toward continuation, which here is the only thing that ever truly gets offered. You keep walking, and without marking the moment, the city shifts around you in a way that feels familiar, like a pattern you never agreed to learn but somehow understand anyway. This is where men begin to look at each other differently, not as people, as possibility, as labor, as something that can be used for a few hours and then forgotten without consequence. You feel it before anyone speaks to you, that subtle change in attention, eyes pausing just a fraction longer, measuring not who you are, but what you can carry, how long you can stand, how much you can endure before becoming a problem. There is no announcement of work in Rome, no clear beginning, just a gathering of men who have nothing, waiting for someone who has slightly more. You slow down, not stopping, just adjusting your pace enough to remain within reach of opportunity without appearing desperate for it, because desperation lowers your value even further. And here, value is already dangerously close to nothing. A man stands near a cart stacked with amphorae, his posture relaxed in the way of someone who does not need to prove anything. He scans the group without urgency, knowing that time works in his favor, not yours. You do not step forward immediately. You let others move first. You watch who gets chosen. Broad shoulders, steady stance, no visible hesitation. You adjust yourself without thinking. Straighten slightly, still your hands, control your breathing. Not to impress, just enough not to be dismissed. His gaze passes over you once, then returns, not because he sees something special, but because you fit the requirement of the moment. He gestures. That is all. No words, no agreement, no guarantee. You step forward because you understand the terms without them being spoken. The work begins immediately. A rope is pressed into your hands, rough against skin that has already learned what comes next. The first pull tells you everything. Weight that does not care about your readiness. Resistance that does not adjust to your strength. You lean into it. Not fully. Never fully. You've learned that giving everything too early only ensures you will not last long enough to be paid. Around you, others move in the same rhythm, not coordinated, but aligned by necessity, each man managing his own limits while pretending not to have any. No one speaks much. There is no energy for it. Only short instructions, quick corrections, the occasional insult when something slows down. Not personal, just functional, like everything else here. Time becomes difficult to measure, not because it moves slowly, but because it stops feeling separate from the work itself. Each movement blends into the next. Lift, carry, place, repeat, until the idea of beginning or ending fades into something less important than simply continuing. Your hands begin to burn, not sharply, not suddenly, but gradually, like something building beneath the skin. You adjust your grip, knowing it will not prevent the damage, only delay it. Splinters find their way in. You do not stop. Stopping requires permission, and permission is rarely given to men like you. Sweat runs into your eyes, carrying dust with it, blurring your vision just enough to make everything feel slightly unreal, like you are watching yourself from a distance, a body performing actions it has memorized too well. At some point, something goes wrong. It always does. A jar shifts unexpectedly, the weight uneven for a fraction of a second, and that fraction is enough. Your balance breaks just slightly. Your grip adjusts too late, and the amphora slips. Not dramatically, not loudly at first, just enough to seal what comes next. It hits the ground. The sound is final. Not loud, but absolute. Everything pauses, not out of concern, out of calculation. The man in charge turns toward you, his expression already decided before he fully processes what happened. You see it in his face, not anger, not even frustration, just the quiet recognition that something has been lost, and that loss must be placed somewhere, on you. You open your mouth, not to argue, but to explain, though you already know explanation has no value here. The crack was already there. The weight shifted. It was not your fault. All of that is true. None of it matters. He steps closer, not aggressively, just enough to establish position. And his voice, when it comes, is controlled, almost bored, as if he has said these words many times before. You will cover the loss. Not a question, a decision. You feel something rise in your chest, not quite anger, not quite fear, something in between, something that wants to push back, to refuse, to say that this is not yours to carry. But that thought does not fully form, because another one replaces it faster. If you refuse, you lose more than coins. You lose access. And access is the only thing standing between you and nothing. So you nod, not in agreement, in acceptance. The work resumes. Nothing changes. That is the part that settles deepest. The city does not pause for your mistake. The men around you do not look at you differently. The system absorbs it instantly, as if it was always meant to happen this way. You keep working, because there is still time left in the day. Because stopping now would make everything before it meaningless. Because somewhere at the end of this, there will be coins, fewer than expected, never enough, but still something you can hold in your hand and call proof that you existed for these hours. By the time the sun begins to press down harder, your body feels less like something you control and more like something you are managing, guiding it through motion, ignoring signals that would stop you if you allowed them to matter. Eventually, the man returns. Coins are dropped into your hand without ceremony. You look at them briefly, less than they should be, exactly what you expected. You close your hand around them anyway, because in this city, being paid unfairly is still better than not being paid at all. You step away. No one stops you. No one thanks you. The space you occupied fills quickly with someone else who looks almost identical to you, not in face, but in circumstance. And just like that, you are no longer needed. The work ends, not with closure, just absence. You move back into the street, the noise of Rome wrapping around you again, unchanged, uninterested, continuing as if nothing of importance has occurred. And maybe it hasn't, not to the city, but to you, something has shifted, not visibly, not dramatically, just enough to remind you of a truth you keep rediscovering. You are not working to move forward. You are working to avoid falling behind. And in Rome, that is the closest thing most men ever get to progress. You step away from the work, and for a brief moment, there is a space where nothing is being demanded from you. It does not feel like relief. It feels like exposure. Because when the body stops, the mind begins to notice things it was too occupied to process. The weight in your arms, the dryness in your throat, the slow, steady return of hunger that had been pushed aside but never truly gone. The sun has climbed higher now. Not gently. It presses down, direct and unforgiving, turning the air thick, almost resistant, as if even breathing requires a little more effort than it should. You move, not because you want to, but because standing still under this heat feels like a mistake that reveals itself too late. Around you, the city has slowed, but not out of rest, out of adaptation. People adjust their pace, their posture, their expectations. learning how to exist inside the weight of the day rather than fight it. You feel it in your skin, first, then deeper, a kind of quiet draining, not dramatic, just constant, like something being taken from you in small, unnoticeable amounts. And then, almost without thinking, you begin to move toward the line. You do not decide it, you arrive at it. The grain distribution, the anana, though no one around you calls it that with any sense of reverence. It is not sacred, it is not generous, it is simply necessary. The line is already long. It always is. It stretches along the wall in a way that suggests permanence, as if it belongs here as much as the buildings themselves, as if removing it would feel unnatural. You take your place. No one acknowledges you, not out of hostility, out of understanding. Everyone here knows that recognition does not change anything. You stand among them, and for a while, nothing happens. Or rather, everything happens slowly enough that it feels like nothing. A shift forward, a pause, another shift. Time here behaves differently. It does not move in moments. It accumulates. You become aware of the people around you, not as individuals, but as conditions. A man in front of you leans slightly to one side, favoring a leg that never healed correctly. You notice it because it changes how the line moves, how space opens and closes in small, irregular ways. Behind you, someone breathes heavily, too loudly, too close, but you do not turn around. There is an unspoken rule here. You do not look too closely at what you cannot change. A child sits in the dirt nearby, drawing shapes that will be erased by the next passing foot. There is focus in the way he does it, a kind of temporary ownership over something that cannot last. You wonder, briefly, when that stops, when the understanding arrives that nothing here is kept. The sun continues to rise. The heat deepens. Conversation, where it exists, is minimal, fragmented, practical. No one wastes energy on anything that does not directly improve their position, and here, very little does. At some point, a woman further ahead collapses. It is not dramatic. She simply stops standing. For a second, the line hesitates, not out of concern, but out of disruption. Then it adjusts, bending around her, continuing its slow progression, as if she has become part of the environment rather than an interruption to it. You step forward when it is your turn, not quickly, not slowly, just enough. No one instructs you. You already know how this works. At the front, the clerk does not look at you. His hands move automatically, measuring, pouring, marking, repeating. His attention not on the people, but on the process, as if you were all interchangeable parts of something larger that only requires completion. Grain falls into your sack, lighter than you hoped, exactly what you expected. A mark is made beside your name, or something that stands in place of it. For a moment, you consider what it would mean to not be marked at all. The thought passes quickly. You step aside. The line absorbs the space you leave behind without delay. You find a place near the edge of the street, not comfortable, just available, and sit. The stone is warm beneath you. You open the sack. Take a handful. Eat. There is no preparation, no transformation, just consumption. The grain is coarse, resistant, requiring effort even now, as if the act of feeding yourself must still remind you of the work it represents. You choose slowly, not to enjoy it, to extend it. Around you, the city continues in its uneven rhythm. A group of well-dressed boys passes nearby, their voices louder than necessary, their movement unburdened. in a way that feels almost deliberate, as if ease itself is something they have learned to display. One of them tosses a coin toward a beggar, not to help, to observe. The coin lands. The beggar reaches. The boys laugh. The moment ends. Nothing changes. You watch it without reacting, not because you do not feel anything, because feeling does not alter the outcome. And here, outcomes are what matter. You take another handful of grain, smaller this time, more measured. You begin to understand something, not as a realization, but as a pattern that has been repeating long enough to become undeniable. This is not temporary. This is not a difficult day. This is the structure. The system does not fail you. It functions exactly as it was designed to, and you exist within it, not as an error, not as an exception, but as a requirement. You finish eating, not because you are full, because there is nothing left to continue with. For a moment, you remain seated, not resting, just delaying the next movement. Because once you stand again, the day resumes its hold on you, and whatever space existed between tasks disappears. You look up. The sky is bright, almost empty. It offers nothing. It promises nothing. Still, you stand, because sitting too long turns into something else, something closer to giving up. And that is one thing you have not allowed yourself to do. Not yet. So you move. Back into the street. Back into the noise. Back into the continuation of a day that does not need to end in order to begin again. You move again, not toward anything urgent, just away from stillness. Because stillness has a way of letting thoughts settle, and once they settle, they become harder to ignore. The streets feel different now. Not quieter, not calmer, just heavier, in a way that is difficult to name, as if the day has reached a point where effort no longer builds momentum, it simply maintains it. You find yourself turning toward home, not out of desire, out of instinct. There is a part of the day where the body begins to calculate what remains, how much strength is left, how much needs to be preserved for later, and where it is safest to spend what little energy you still control. The building stands where you left it, leaning, unchanged, holding together not by strength, but by continuation, like everything else here. You step inside. The air is warmer than outside, trapped, unmoving, carrying the residue of everyone who has passed through it. The stairs respond to your weight in the same way as before. Familiar, unreliable. You reach your room. It is empty for now. That in itself feels temporary. You sit, not fully, just enough to let your body lower without committing to rest. For a moment, there is nothing to do. No line, no instruction, no expectation pressing directly against you. And that is when the thought returns. Not suddenly. It has been there all day, just beneath everything else, waiting for space. You look toward the corner. A small space, barely separate from the rest of the room, marked not by design, but by repetition. A broken plate, a trace of ash, something that once had a shape, now worn down to suggestion. You do not approach it immediately. There is hesitation, not because you doubt it, but because you are not sure what you expect from it anymore. Still, you move closer, slowly, as if approaching something that might disappear if you come too directly. You light a small flame. It flickers, uncertain, then steadies, just enough to exist. You bring your hands together, not tightly, not with conviction, just enough to complete the gesture. Your eyes close, and for a moment, nothing comes. No words, no clear request, just the awareness of yourself, standing in a room that could collapse, in a city that does not notice you, in a life that continues, whether it improves or not. Then, slowly, the thoughts begin to form, not grand, not ambitious, specific. You ask that the building holds through the night, that no fire starts below you, that the people you share space with return without new injuries, without new problems that become yours by proximity. You ask for things that would not matter to anyone above you, which is why you ask them here. There is no image in your mind of who listens, no face, no voice, only the act itself, the motion of asking, because the act changes something, not outside, not in the world, but inside you, shifting the weight just slightly, redistributing it in a way that makes it possible to carry for a little longer. You stay there longer than you expected, not because you feel heard, because you are not ready to stop. There is a difference. Eventually, your hands lower, your eyes open. The room returns immediately, unchanged, the walls still cracked, the air still heavy, the silence still incomplete. You look at the small flame. It burns without meaning. And yet, you leave it there, because removing it would feel like closing something you are not ready to close. You sit back. The thought lingers, not fully formed, but present enough to recognize. Belief here is not about certainty. It is not about truth. It is about endurance. It gives shape to something that would otherwise remain undefined, and in doing so, it makes it easier to continue. You do not need the gods to answer. You need them to exist, or at least to feel like they might. Outside, the city continues, unchanged by what you just did. Inside, something has shifted, not enough to alter your situation, just enough to carry it. You stand again, because even this moment, quiet as it is, cannot last. Nothing here does. And the day is not finished with you yet. The day begins to loosen its grip. Not suddenly, not with relief, but gradually, like a hand that was never holding you gently in the first place, only tightening less because it no longer needs to. The light changes first. It loses its sharpness, softens at the edges, though nothing below truly softens with it. The walls still trap heat. The air still carries everything it gathered throughout the day. And your body, instead of recovering, simply shifts into a different kind of exhaustion. You step back into the street. It is not quieter. It is rearranged. Vendors begin to close, not because they are done, but because there is no more to gain from staying open. Whatever has not been sold will either be kept, reused, or quietly lost, like everything else that fails to serve its purpose in time. A man gathers what remains of his goods with careful hands, not rushing, not delaying, just moving with the understanding that this is how every day ends, with something left behind. Dogs move more freely now, slipping between people, searching for what others have discarded, their focus sharper than most of the humans around them. You walk without direction, or rather, your direction is shaped by what feels available, what feels tolerable, what feels like it will not demand too much from what little you have left. The tavern finds you before you decide on it. Light spills from inside, uneven, flickering, carrying with it the sound of voices that are louder than they need to be, as if volume itself can push back against the day. You pause outside for a moment, not out of doubt, out of calculation. You feel the coins in your hand, fewer than they should be, enough for something, not enough for choice. You step inside. The air is thicker here, heavier, but warmer in a way that feels almost intentional, as if discomfort has been shaped into something that resembles comfort. The smell is immediate. Sour wine, Old wood, sweat, something cooking that no longer resembles what it once was. You sit, not where you want, where there is space. Around you, men occupy the room in a way that feels familiar, not because you know them, but because you recognize the pattern. Bent shoulders, slow movements, voices that carry just enough energy to maintain presence, but not enough to suggest anything beyond it. No one asks your name. You would not give it if they did. Names imply continuity. Here, continuity is not guaranteed. You place your coin down. The exchange is simple. A cup is set in front of you. You look at it briefly. It is not wine in the way it is described elsewhere. It is thinner, sharper, carrying something beneath it that you choose not to identify. Still, you drink. The first taste is harsh, not surprising, just confirming. It burns slightly, then settles, not pleasantly, but effectively, dulling something at the edge of your awareness that you did not realize was sharp until it softened. Food follows, if it can be called that. Lentils, unevenly cooked. Bread, harder than it needs to be. You break it slowly, not out of care, out of necessity. A man nearby speaks. Not to you, not to anyone in particular, just outward. Words drifting into the space as if they need somewhere to go. He complains about the grain, about the weight, about the way things used to be, though you suspect they were never much different. Another man responds, not disagreeing, not agreeing, just adding something of his own. And for a moment, it resembles conversation, though nothing is truly exchanged. You listen without intending to. It fills the space. It makes the room feel less empty without making it feel full. You eat. You drink. Slowly, not to enjoy it, to extend the moment before you have to leave. Because outside, the night is beginning to take shape, and with it comes a different kind of awareness. You look around, faces lit unevenly by flame, eyes reflecting light without holding it. You wonder, briefly, how many of them will still be here tomorrow. The thought does not linger. It does not need to. You already know the answer. Some will. Some will not. The room will remain. That is what matters to the city. Not who fills it, just that it is filled. You finish what is in front of you, not because you are satisfied, because there is nothing left to continue with. You stand. No one stops you. No one acknowledges that you were ever there. The door opens. The air outside feels cooler, though not clean, just different. You begin the walk back. The streets have shifted again. Fewer vendors, more shadows. Movement that feels less structured, less predictable. You pass figures that do not fully reveal themselves. Shapes that exist at the edge of your awareness, but do not invite closer attention. You do not look too long. Looking too long invites involvement. Involvement leads to consequence. You reach your building. It stands as it did before, still holding. You step inside. The darkness is deeper here, the kind that does not fully disappear even when light is present. The stairs creak beneath you, each step a quiet reminder that the structure beneath your feet is not as certain as you would prefer. You pass someone in the corridor, or rather, you pass a shape that might be someone. They do not speak, neither do you. You reach your room. You enter. It is still yours, for now. The air holds the heat of the day, trapped, unwilling to leave. You sit, then lie down. The surface beneath you is familiar in its discomfort. You adjust without thinking. Around you, others return, or new ones arrive. It makes no difference. The space fills. The room settles. Outside, the city lowers its voice. Not silent, never silent, just quieter. You close your eyes, not because you are ready to sleep, because there is nothing left to do, and for a brief moment, that is enough. Sleep does not arrive, not fully. It hovers, it approaches, touches the edges of your awareness, then pulls back again, as if something in you refuses to let go completely. Your body lies still, your mind does not. The room breathes around you, not as a single space, but as many small lives overlapping without merging, each person carrying their own weight into the dark, each movement, each shift, each quiet sound adding to something that never settles into silence. Someone coughs, not once, repeatedly, a dry, persistent sound that does not seek attention but cannot avoid it. Another turns in their place, fabric dragging against rough surface, the small friction echoing more than it should. Somewhere, close enough to matter, someone whispers. You cannot make out the words. That is almost worse than hearing them, because your mind fills in what it cannot understand. You open your eyes. The darkness is not complete. It never is. There is always something, a line of faint light slipping through a crack, the dull glow of something left burning too long. Shapes that begin to form where nothing should be. You focus on the ceiling, or where the ceiling should be. The surface is uneven, marked by time, by water, by things that have already begun to fail but have not yet fallen. You think about that, not directly, not as a fear, more as an awareness that sits quietly in the background, like a truth that has no urgency until it suddenly does. Your body shifts, not because you are uncomfortable, because you are trying to find a position where the thoughts do not follow you. It does not work. The day returns, not as memory, as fragments, the line for grain, the heat, the faces, the sound of voices that meant nothing and everything at the same time, the small flame in the corner that lingers longer than the rest, not because it was important, because it felt like it should have been. You wonder, briefly, if it is still burning, if something so small can outlast your attention, if it matters. You close your eyes again. This time, something shifts, not into rest, into something closer to it. The edges of your thoughts begin to blur, connections loosen, time loses its shape. And then, without warning, you are somewhere else. Not fully, not clearly, but enough to feel it. You are standing, not in your room, in a space that feels larger, though you cannot see its boundaries. There is light, too much, not warm, not cold, just present. You look down. Your hands are clean. That feels wrong. You look up. There is no one. And yet, there is the sense that you are not alone, not watched, not judged, simply observed. The thought forms slowly. This is what it would be like. Not the afterlife as it is described, not reward, not punishment, just continuation, awareness without weight, existence without effort. It should feel comforting. It does not, because something is missing. You try to name it. You cannot. And then, just as quickly, it begins to dissolve. The light fades. The space collapses inward, not violently, just inevitably, like something that was never meant to hold its shape for long. You wake, or something close to waking. The room returns. The ceiling, the sounds, the weight. Everything is exactly where it was. Nothing has changed. And yet something feels different. Not in the world, in the way you are inside it. You breathe in. slowly. The air is thick, real. You listen. The coughing has stopped. The whispering too. For a moment, there is something close to silence. Not complete, but close enough to notice. You realize then, sleep here is not escape. It is interruption. A brief pause in continuity, not a departure from it. You do not leave this place, not even in dreams. You only experience it differently. Your eyes remain open. You do not try to sleep again. There is no point forcing something that does not come willingly. Instead, you wait, because waiting is something you understand. Waiting for light, waiting for movement, waiting for the day to begin again, so that this one can finally end. Time passes. You cannot measure how much. It stretches, compresses, becomes something that does not follow rules you can rely on. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, it happens. The darkness begins to shift. Not gone, just less certain. A faint grey replaces the black. Edges return. Shapes regain their meaning. Morning does not arrive. It reveals itself. And with it, the understanding settles in quietly, without resistance. Nothing ended. It only paused. And now it continues. You sit up. Your body responds, not rested, not ready, just capable. Which is enough. It has to be. Because the day has already started, and it is waiting for you again. You sit there for a moment longer than necessary, not resting, not thinking, just delaying the first movement. Because the first movement confirms everything, that the day has begun again, that nothing has changed, that whatever carried you through yesterday is expected to do the same today. Your feet touch the ground, cold, real, enough to pull you fully back. Around you, the room begins to separate into individuals again. Shapes become people, breathing becomes presence. The shared silence fractures into small, private routines. Someone leaves early. You hear it in the careful steps, the attempt to move without drawing attention, as if leaving quietly might make the act itself lighter. Another sits up slowly, holding their side, measuring pain before committing to motion. No one speaks. There is no need. Morning is not for conversation. It is for continuation. You stand. Your body resists, not dramatically, just enough to remind you that recovery is incomplete, that whatever was taken yesterday has not been returned. You move anyway, because resistance is not a reason to stop here. It never was. You step outside. The air is cooler, but it carries something familiar, a kind of anticipation that does not belong to hope, but to repetition. The street is already forming itself again, not from nothing, but from what was left behind. A cart rolls past, empty, on its way to become full. A woman sweeps dust that will return by midday. A child watches, not helping, not playing, just learning without being told what exactly is being learned. You begin to walk, not with urgency, with acceptance. The path does not need to be chosen again. It remembers you. The same turns, the same distances, the same unspoken understanding of where you are allowed to be and where you are not. You pass the place where the man had been yesterday. Another stands there now. Or maybe the same one, just changed enough by the day to feel different. It does not matter. Positions remain. People rotate through them. You reach the line. It has already begun. Of course it has. It always begins before you arrive. That is part of it. You take your place. Not at the front, not at the back. Somewhere in between, where waiting becomes less about time and more about endurance. You look ahead, not at anything specific, just forward. because forward is the only direction that suggests movement, even when nothing is moving at all. The person in front of you shifts. You follow slightly, the smallest progress, barely noticeable, still counted. You think about yesterday, not in detail, in structure, and you realize something quietly, something that does not feel new but feels clearer now. Nothing in that day was unique. Not the hunger, not the waiting, not the small moment in the corner with the flame, not even the night. It all repeats. Not exactly, but closely enough that the differences lose importance. And that realization does something subtle. It removes expectation, not hope, expectation. Because expecting something different requires evidence, and there is none. So instead, you adjust. Not your actions, your understanding. You're not moving through days. You're inside a cycle, and cycles do not aim forward. They sustain themselves. The line moves again. Another step, another adjustment. The sun begins to rise higher, already reclaiming its place, already preparing to press down in the same way it did before. You feel it, not as heat yet, as promise or warning. The person behind you exhales sharply, impatience or fatigue. It is difficult to tell the difference. You do not turn. There is nothing behind you that will change what is in front. Time continues, measured in steps, in breaths, in the slow wearing down of attention. And as you stand there, held in place by something that feels larger than choice, the thought settles in. Not heavy, not light, just present. This is not a story that builds. It does not move toward a moment where everything shifts. It maintains. It continues. And you are part of that continuation, not temporarily, not incidentally, but completely. The line moves again. You follow, because that is what there is to do. And for now, that is enough.